Hey, what's up, Mavs fans? Kevin Gray, Mavericks pre- and post-game host of 97.1 The Freak on the Dallas Mavericks Radio Network. Appreciate you joining me for my latest video here on Kevin Gray Sports on YouTube. Be sure and like and comment on this video and download the Inside The Mavs podcast wherever you get podcasts for free. Give it a 5-star rating and write a review for it while you're there. And you can also find me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Kevin Gray Sports. Be sure to give me a follow there. The NBA All-Star Game is in the books. Luka Doncic, Dereck Lively II representing your Dallas Mavericks during NBA All-Star Weekend. The Eastern Conference scoring over 200 points wins the 73rd edition of the NBA All-Star Game. Luka Doncic finishing the game with 7 points, 7 rebounds, and 7 assists for number 77. According to him, just the way that he planned it. And what was a festive week during the NBA All-Star Weekend. Luka Doncic, of course, the NBA's leading scorer. The Dallas Mavericks have 32 and 23 on a 6-game winning streak. Going into the All-Star break, sitting 7th in the Western Conference right now, looking to continue to build on that momentum when they return from the break on Thursday when they take on Kevin Durant and the Phoenix Suns. But, of course, Luka Doncic, 5-time All-Star, 4-time starter as he was on Sunday night's game. He, Nikola Jokic, and others, left a little bit to be desired in the game for sure. It was obviously a cool moment to see him standing alongside LeBron James during the pregame introductions as LeBron James made his 20th consecutive NBA All-Star start, which, of course, is an NBA record. And for Doncic, capping off what was a cool weekend for him, being able to represent the Dallas Mavericks. Dereck Lively II being able to do the same during the Rising Stars game as his team Jalen, who was coached by former NBA legend, if you will, Jalen Rose, who, of course, played for the Indiana Pacers, among others, during his NBA career, was the coach of the team. And Dereck Lively acquitted himself extremely well in the game. You saw what he's been doing throughout the course of the year, the lob dunks and finishing at the rim, bringing it on both ends of the floor. Dereck Lively could have been the Rising Stars MVP, but that went to Benedict Mathurin of the Indiana Pacers. The Pacers themselves as a team had a pretty good All-Star weekend, winning the Skills Challenge, winning the Rising Stars MVP. Tyrese Halliburton almost was the NBA All-Star MVP himself. Damian Lillard, though, taking home those honors for the NBA All-Star game. But for the Mavericks, being able to have Luka Doncic and Dereck Lively represent the organization was tremendous to watch both of them interact with each other throughout the weekend. You saw former Maverick Jalen Brunson, who made his very first NBA All-Star game, interacting with Luka Doncic as well, them sharing a cool moment before the game, and obviously reminiscing about the times that they were able to have together. It was really cool to see Brunson be able to realize all the hard work that he's put in. And, of course, he's turned into a star with the New York Knicks. But for Luka and Lively, their interactions, you saw during one of the practices, Lively standing next to Doncic, Doncic calling a bounce shot from the half court, knocking it in, and Dereck Lively just laughing as he runs away from Luka Doncic in awe of the fact that Luka continues to make these ridiculous trick shots. That interaction allows you to see what could be a budding future for the two of them. We know how much Luka Doncic loves Dereck Lively, talking about how he's played like an NBA veteran, like he's been here for 10 years. And the way that Lively has continued to grow so far this year gives you a lot of encouragement that he can continue to be the kind of player that will allow this team to feel comfortable being around and building around him and Luka as part of their big three that they have with Kyrie, Luka, and Dereck Lively. You look at Lively and what he's done so far this year, he's put himself in position really to be the third best player on this team. And now that the Mavericks have been able to solidify their team with the acquisitions of PJ Washington and Daniel Gafford, the confidence that grows much more for this team, knowing that Lively will have a veteran big man presence behind him that will continue to help him grow as well. He will obviously continue to learn from the likes of Dwight Powell and Maxi Kleber and others, what it learns to be a veteran and how to play the game to be an NBA pro. And then with the talent that he's already displayed so far this year, the high IQ and the basketball acumen that he's displayed, as he continues to be better as a player, all of these things will hopefully develop the continuity and chemistry that the Mavericks are looking for. And if so, this should be a very interesting post All-Star break for this team. We'll get more into the preview of the post All-Star break schedule during our next episode on Wednesday. But it just gives you a window into the encouragement that the Mavericks have as an organization right now. As we go further in our show, let's take a quick break. Let's hear from today's video partner as we hear from our video partner today, Mint Mobile. Today's video partner is Mint Mobile. Have you ever thought, why in the world is my wireless bill so high? What am I actually paying for? Speed, data, coverage, access to 5G, mobile hotspots, unlimited talk and text? What am I actually getting for all of this? Mint Mobile offers all these features for as low as $15 a month, and that's why I've partnered with Mint Mobile. They reimagined the wireless shopping experience and made it easy and online. No stores, no salespeople, just huge direct-to-you savings. Why should you pay more than you have to for access to premium wireless? Mint Mobile runs on the nation's largest 5G network. Go to mintmobile.com, also linked in my description, to get premium wireless for $15 a month. Switching to Mint is super easy. Thanks to digital eSIM cards, which most phones now have, you can sign up and activate immediately right on your phone from the comfort of your own home. If your phone doesn't have an eSIM, Mint will ship you a new SIM card for free. Big Wireless wants you to think that they're the only option. Don't be duped. Go to mintmobile.com/Kevin Gray, also linked in my description, to stop paying more than what you have to for your phone plan.
Hey there, it's Ryan Reynolds, owner of Mint Mobile. Enticing, right?
Back here on Inside the Mavs as we continue our conversation as the Mavericks get ready for their schedule when they take on the Phoenix Suns on Thursday as they begin their post-All-Star break schedule. The Mavericks will have one of the toughest schedules in the league after the All-Star break is concerned. As I mentioned, we'll talk more about that on our Wednesday episode. But back to obviously what happened this weekend with Luka Doncic, Dereck Lively, and the Dallas Mavericks during the NBA All-Star weekend. Yeah, there's going to be a lot of criticism about the game in and of itself, the lack of effort from a lot of the different players in the game, and then to some degree, Luka Doncic, Nikola Jokic themselves, as far as the way that they played the game. And Luka talked about it after the NBA All-Star game, saying, in essence, if guys aren't going to play hard on defense, why in essence am I going to play hard on offense? And while, yes, there will be plenty of conversation over the next several weeks and months on how the NBA All-Star game needs to improve in terms of the effort and competitive drive that the guys show in the game, it's an exhibition game, and Luka played it to the tune of an exhibition game. Well, yeah, it is a little bit of a bad look at times for him not to show the consistent effort that you would want to see from an All-Star game, given how we have loved NBA All-Star games in the past, with all the guys competing for conference pride as we got back to the East versus the West in this year's version of the All-Star game. You would want to see a little bit more of that. You saw plenty of admonishment from NBA veterans and legends throughout the course of the weekend, including Larry Bird, who said, hey, I want these guys to play hard in this game. You even saw Adam Silver after the game was over with, the disgusted look that he had on his face after he awarded the trophy to Giannis Antetokounmpo in the Eastern Conference, saying, hey, congratulations, you guys scored the most points. And it will be a discussion that needs to be had, but how do you improve the All-Star game? Do you incentivize players to play the game, much like how you've done with the in-season tournament? If you're the NBA, the amount of money that each player is able to win by winning the NBA Cup in the in-season tournament, maybe that's something that has to be done for the NBA All-Star game, a pay-to-play type of thing for each of these guys to feel like it's worth putting forward a little bit more effort. But there's so much at stake for each of these players when it comes to playing, not only in the All-Star game, but obviously in every NBA game that they play. We've talked about it a little bit before. Tyrese Halliburton, who was recently on JJ Redick's podcast, talking about how he came back a little bit early because he had to think about meeting that 65-game requirement in order to be qualified for the NBA postseason awards. And guys aren't trying to get hurt during the NBA All-Star game. LeBron James mentioning that at the end of the game himself, saying one of the biggest wins of the night was the fact that no one got hurt. And while, yes, that is ultimately the goal here because no one wants to see anyone, including Luka Doncic, get hurt in an NBA All-Star game, there has to be some kind of balance here struck forward on how these guys can play a competitive game while also having kind of the fun that they were having. And you could tell that they were having a lot of fun. Luka, the same. You saw one of the highlights of the game, the non-dribbling fast break that he and Nikola Jokic ran and was able to get a bucket at the end of it. And those moments are really cool. Tyrese Halliburton and Damian Lillard pulling up from half court, knocking down threes. Stephen Curry doing what he does best. Giannis with his athleticism and the dunks. Karl Anthony Towns, who wound up putting the 50 spot up in the game himself. All of these things are fun, but it kind of takes away for what we loved about the All-Star game. And hopefully going forward, Luka, as he continues to grow as far as his overall participation in the game is concerned, he may take the game a little more seriously, or maybe he won't. You can tell that he's been deferring, continues to defer to the older guys, whether it be LeBron James, Giannis, Lillard, take your pick, on the veterans, Kevin Durant as well, on the guys that have been there, done that for a long time. But Luka's time will come at some point when he decides to take the game a little more seriously. But as long as the NBA scoring leader and Luka continues to put forward the offensive displays that we've seen so far this year, I'm not going to, bang him over the head too much because of what happened in the NBA All-Star game. We've seen 50-point games from him on Christmas Day. We saw, of course, the magical 73-point game that he had against the Atlanta Hawks. And that's the biggest thing now going forward. How do the Mavericks build on the 6-game winning streak that they currently have to continue to ensure that they're growing the way that they need to, especially with the additions of PJ Washington and Daniel Gafford, who have infused new life into this team? For Washington on the defensive end and the effort he continues to put forward there, and Daniel Gafford, the monster that he's been, especially on the offensive and defensive glass, providing some shot blocking and rim protection as well behind Dereck Lively. We've seen the emergence of Josh Green over the last month or so, especially knocking down threes from the corners. For a guy like Derrick Jones Jr., can he get back to what he was doing a little bit earlier this year in terms of knocking down three-pointers at a more consistent rate? You know what you're going to get from Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving. Kyrie Irving, since coming back from his injury at the beginning of January, has been spectacular for the Mavericks. You've seen the way that he's been able to take over games, the 17 points that he scored in the second quarter against the San Antonio Spurs, lifting them and giving the Mavericks a spark, being the guy that can take the scoring load off of Luka Doncic. Defensively, this team has been playing much better as of late. Again, you can thank guys like PJ Washington and others who are taking the onus on the defensive end to play much better. Luka Doncic, who's top 10 in steals so far this season. Again, taking the onus on him to provide much better defensive effort night in and night out. No one's going to ever accuse the Mavericks of being a terrific defensive team, but what you've seen from them over the last couple of weeks, a top 10 defensive efficiency team, offensively top 5, of course, in what they do scoring the basketball. That is the kind of balance that we've been looking for throughout the course of the season. Health has killed this team all season long. They have not been able to have the kind of continuity with the starting lineups that you have wanted to have if you're a Mavericks fan watching this team so far this year. They've had more starting lineups than any team in the league, and you've seen how that has taken a toll on this team at times. But despite all of the adversity that they've gone through, there's still 9 games, a season high, 9 games above 500. Right now are tied for the current longest winning streak in the NBA at 6 with the Boston Celtics, and are right now in 7th in the West, a game behind the 6th spot in the Western Conference. And that will be the push going forward for the rest of the year. Can they get themselves comfortably into the top 6, where we know the West has been as good as any throughout the course of the first, or I should say the pre-All-Star break, and what has been seen from the teams like the Minnesota Timberwolves, the Oklahoma City Thunder, the Los Angeles Clippers, who since mid-November have been absolutely terrific. The New Orleans Pelicans playing some really good basketball, led by Zion Williamson, who's been primarily their ball handler for the Pelicans. And of course, They'll take on the Phoenix Suns on Thursday with a chance to make up immediate ground when it comes to taking on the Suns on Thursday. So everything is in front of the Mavericks right now to be able to gain based on what they've been able to build. And you look further down the roster with Jadon Hardy, who's been playing very well as of late as well, providing some scoring off the bench, knocking down shots, especially from the outside. Tim Hardaway Jr., who during the early part of the year was a leading sixth man of the year candidate, has cooled off a little bit over the last couple of weeks, but at the same time, they're going to need THJ and the scoring that he brings off the bench to be able to help that second unit really maintain themselves, especially in those non-Luka minutes. And that's the big thing when it comes to Kyrie Irving. Him being able to take the scoring load and be able to help the Mavericks in non-Luka minutes, because the goal for them when Luka's not on the floor is to at least be even. You cannot find yourselves going into the negative when Luka is off the floor. Kyrie is going to help a lot of that. And as long as PJ Washington and Daniel Gafford continue to come along, especially Washington when it comes to knocking down three-pointers, which he has struggled with since joining the Dallas Mavericks. And even before joining the Mavericks, was around 32, 33% in terms of shooting the three so far this year. He's got to be a guy that knocks down the three ball at a much more consistent rate. And if he can, he is going to be a guy that allows you to stretch the floor that much further because of the spacing that he'll create by knocking down open shots. When I had the chance to talk to him before the All-Star break, Washington talked about how easy looks he's going to get playing alongside Luka and Kyrie. And you know that's going to be the case when you're playing alongside two guys that can create not only for themselves, but for others as well. It will be up to Washington now to make teams pay. Dereck Jones Jr., the same, make teams pay for leaving them open with the kind of open shots that they're going to get. One of the statistics that blew my mind so far this first portion of the season, I should say, is the unrealized assist that Luka Doncic has been able to generate. So far, Luka Doncic this season, and this is a real statistic, I looked it up the other day, Luka Doncic so far is third in the NBA with over 400 unrealized assists. Only Trae Young and Tyrese Halliburton have generated more assists that have not been realized so far this year. But the big thing with Luka Doncic and the unrealized assists that he has so far this year, he's number one in the NBA in shot quality rank. That means he's generating the best shot quality of any player in the league so far, and he has the third most unrealized assists. So that just gives you an idea of the amount of opportunities that these guys are getting with the quality looks that they're getting when Luka Doncic is on the floor. And if they can start to make the shots and make teams pay for what Luka Doncic does in creating opportunities for them, this offense becomes that much more lethal. And you've seen how this team has been able to get up and down in transition as well. When they're getting out on the fast break, they're putting pressure on opposing defenses to give them opportunities to get easy baskets. And in ability to get back on defense as well, now they're able to set things up from a half-court standpoint because now they're the ones putting the pressure on everyone else. And that is going to be something that you and I will be watching after the All-Star break. Defensively, can they find themselves locking down teams, not giving up over 110 points, keeping teams to that 110, 115 mark, because we know today's NBA, the offense is absolutely off the charts. But can they find ways to continue to be good in clutch time, which we know the Mavericks have so far been pretty good in clutch time this year. And if that is the case, the formula being able to get out on the fast break, get easy transition buckets, be able to put pressure on teams offensively by getting in the passing lanes, getting deflections, but also now closing out possessions with a guy like Daniel Gafford and Dereck Lively on the defensive glass. Now you're putting together a more complete team that you can see moving in the Western Conference. We've talked about it before, and we'll continue to talk about it when it comes to this team. They are the team that you don't necessarily want to see come playoff time. With the amount of offensive skill that they have between Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving, and now putting the pieces around them that complement the games that they have with PJ Washington and Daniel Gafford, and hopefully the continued shot making of guys like Dereck Jones Jr., Josh Green, and others, now you have a lot more versatility as far as your 10-man rotation is concerned. And Maxi Kleber, who's been dealing with that troublesome toe all year long, provides you that much more deeper of a bench with his flexibility to not only knock down shots and attack closeouts which he's getting more comfortable at doing, but also on the defensive end with his flexibility and versatility, who can guard multiple positions and be able to switch when teams decide to go small on them. So now you can create variety on your defensive end with personnel that can match anything that an opposing team is doing. But then offensively, you've got two guys that you've got to account for that are going to give you on average almost 60 points a night. And if I can get another 15 from Josh Green, if I can get another 10 to 12 from a guy like Dereck Jones Jr., obviously with Dereck Lively, who can give you 10 to 12 points just on easy lob dunks and finishing at the rim alone, then Daniel Gafford, PJ Washington, you see where I'm going here. There's a lot to like based off of what the Mavericks have so far and what they will now continue to grow with. And for Jason Kidd, can he be able to be the difference maker going forward post All-Star break? But when you look at the Mavericks and what they were able to do, here's one of my biggest takeaways from NBA All-Star Weekend if you're Luka Doncic. If Kyrie Irving doesn't find himself dealing with the injuries that he had dealt with before the All-Star break, he probably would have been in Indianapolis alongside Luka Doncic as well. Dereck Lively being there as a rising star should give you confidence that the Mavericks are building this team the right way. And more importantly, for Luka Doncic, the confidence of knowing that you got an all-star teammate back at home in Dallas with Kyrie Irving, and you had another one actually with you during All-Star Weekend in Dereck Lively. If you're Luka Doncic, you should start to feel a lot better about how this team is being built around you moving forward to give you confidence that you can potentially win a championship with the Mavericks. There is still a long way to go. Trust me. I understand. I watch, cover, talk about this team all the time. But when you look at the way this team is starting to build and they decided to make the move to go all in, to go get PJ Washington, to spend the first round pick that they had. They did the same when they acquired Kyrie Irving last year, being able to buy him a little bit lower based off of what he was able to do and what the situation called for in Brooklyn and how they were able to acquire him. The Mavericks should be in a much better spot, and they feel like they are in a much better spot now than what they were a year ago based on their roster composition and the versatility that they have with the guys that are on their team. And if all of this comes together and coalesces the way that it needs to, based on the amount of time that they have now after the All-Star break, this is a team that can make some real noise in the West. The question will be, can they remain healthy for the rest of the year? If they are able to remain healthy, then that chemistry and all the things that we've talked about previously will continue to get better night in and night out. And when you've got 77 leading you, the NBA's leading scorer, top 5 in assists, top 10 in steals, having an MVP-like campaign, this is when we start putting Luka Doncic really into the discussion of the NBA's MVP. When you look at the conversation around MVP right now, it surrounds Giannis Antetokounmpo for the Bucks, Nikola Jokic for the Denver Nuggets, and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander right now for the Oklahoma City Thunder. If the Mavericks can find themselves climbing, especially to the top 4 of the West, Luka Doncic will firmly be in that discussion and should be a leading MVP candidate, but it's based on the way that his team plays around him. And he now has a really good team based on what their skill sets are and what they bring to the table night in and night out. And for Dante Exum, who we haven't even touched on in this particular discussion, when he comes back healthy, yet another ball handler that can provide defense coming off the bench as well. You see how this team, based off of what they have right now, is a lot better and feels much better based on the way that the style of play that they want to have and executing on that vision in terms of the style of play that they want to have night in and night out. And if you are watching this team, those are the things you and I will be discussing over the next several weeks when it comes to how this team performs. Are they, one, continuing to beat up on the bad teams, which they've done so far quite a bit this year? And two, are they finding themselves beating some of the better teams in the West to give them opportunities to make up ground in the Western Conference standings. Because if they can, this team will be right there where they need to be, firmly in the top 6. That is the goal, the number one thing that this team needs to do. Get to the top 6, avoid the play-in, and then find yourself in a matchup where who knows what could happen in a first-round series. The ultimate would be for them to get to the top 4. I'm not sure if they've got enough time and enough games to do that, but they should, based on the way that's been playing, and if they can maintain any level of consistency close to what they've done over the last 6 games, I firmly believe this team will be in the top 6 of the West at the end of the regular season. And based off of what happened last year, that is a huge step forward. I've told plenty of people this previously. The amount of step back that this team took last year is the only amount of step back this team should ever take in the Luka Doncic era. You now have a team that's in position to be able to grow, get better, but also a young group that should be able to allow themselves the kind of growth and character based on their ages to now they all begin to trust and learn and believe in one another so that they can find what they're looking for based on the way that they want to play, building around Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving. It's exciting times, and the NBA All-Star Weekend provided a glimpse of that based off of what you saw in terms of what you saw, the interactions, I should say, between Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving. And Dereck Lively. The game in and of itself, the All-Star Game, left a lot to be desired. Maybe pay the players to go play in the game. Dunk contest got to be saved. That was a dud. Obviously, some of the commentary around the Stephen Curry and Sabrina Ionescu, three-point shooting contest, that left a lot to be desired. There was a lot that was left to be desired from the NBA All-Star Game. But the whole thing is now it's over. NBA All-Star Weekend is over. Luka Doncic is overseas relaxing. If you watched and saw his IG, he's chilling as he gets ready for this post-All-Star break push. And if you're a Maverick fan, it should be an exciting one based on what they've been able to accomplish so far this season. Through all the things that they've been through, they are now in a terrific spot to really make a run at this thing in the second half. Now we will watch to see how these pieces come together and how they are able to move forward in what is an extremely deep Western Conference so far this year. But the Mavericks, 9 games above 500, get back on the floor on Thursday when they take on Kevin Durant and the Phoenix Suns. On our Wednesday episode, Grant will be back with me to be able to discuss and we'll preview in detail what the second half will look like for the Dallas Mavericks, what they need to do to ensure that they are continuing to move forward and moving up in the West, and how they'll look to accomplish that with the new pieces that they have in Daniel Gafford and PJ Washington. So definitely join us for our episode on Wednesday. Appreciate you joining me here on this latest episode of Inside the Mavs. Again, you can download and subscribe to the Inside the Mavs podcast wherever you get podcasts for free. Give it a 5-star rating. Write a review for it while you're there. Don't forget to like and comment on this video as well, and also support the video partner that we have in terms of MintMobile and everything else for our podcast. You can also find me on Twitter at Kevin Gray Sports. Give me a follow on Twitter. And you can check out my other podcast that I do, the Gray Area Podcast, wherever you get podcasts for free. Again, thank you for joining me here on Inside the Mavs here on Kevin Gray Sports on YouTube. Subscribe to Kevin Gray Sports here on my YouTube channel, and make sure you follow everything we've got going on here. This has been Inside the Mavs, the official Mavericks podcast of 97.1 The Freak from the Dallas Mavericks Radio Network. My name is Kevin Gray, and I'll talk to you later. Peace.